So the official State of the University Address 2018 edition will be available on iTunes, probably, probably never, but thank you guys very much for that. Welcome to the 2018 State of the University Address. I really appreciate your attendance here today, and really grateful for the opportunity to serve as your interim president. Before we get into the substance of today's address, there are a few individuals here I'd like to recognize. First and foremost, very grateful to have my partner in crime in life, my wife, Robin. Also have members of the Board of Governors sitting down within spitting distance right here. We have Board President John Collier. Governor Gus Wetzel. One of our newest board members, Steve Abney. And unless I missed anybody else coming in and they bypassed the front row, I think that may be it for our Board of Governors. We also have with us a number of our leadership team. I won't go through the introductions of all of them, but there are some new people to the team that you may not have had an opportunity to meet yet, so I'd like to point out a few of those to you. Our newest addition to the team is Interim CFO Bill Hawley. We also have Interim Foundation Executive Director, Vice President for Advancement, and anything else we can think of to add to his title, Bill Estes. And somebody else you probably know well and trust who actually agreed to be our general counsel starting July 1 is Lindsay Chapman. A lot of other changes, as you're aware, and instead of trying to go through all of those today, what I'd like to do is in the coming days submit to you through email a list of our, in essence, organizational structure by area so that you have a good chance to see who's where, who's doing what these days, and see who has an I in front of their title and who doesn't. So. I also would like to say thanks and acknowledge all of our faculty, staff, students, and alumni who are here. Really appreciate your attendance. Obviously, you have plenty of things to be doing this time of year, so I appreciate your taking time to come here instead and listen to the State of the University address. Our address today is being live streamed by our digital media production students, so thank you guys. Between you and me, always be nice to the camera folks because they get lots of footage that's not very appealing sometimes. So thank you guys for live streaming, and to everyone who's viewing by live stream, we appreciate your tuning in. We had some pictures playing before the address started. Those were taken during the first year experience, the Sunday of move-in and the Thursday of move-in. So I appreciate our university relations team, who now is known as Integrated Marketing Communications, if you haven't seen that memo. Appreciate the staff putting that slideshow together. Those pictures, to me, help capture the energy that we feel as move-in and start of semester occurs. And I don't know about you, but I love the move-in days because it very much reinforces why we are here. So, as I get into the substance of the address, I want to give you a heads up that I'd like to cover 3 questions. Where did we come from? Where are we today? And where are we going? I want to tell you first and foremost that I am not one to anchor in the past, which is kind of surprising considering I have a long service here of 23 years. But I have to acknowledge, and something that you know, unless you're a recent joinee with us, that in recent years we faced some challenges, particularly with funding. And so I think even though we've been around as an institution since 1871, we have a lot of traditions, we have a strong legacy of excellent education. And we're going to be celebrating that, by the way, in the coming months and years as we lead up to our sesquicentennial anniversary. We're going to have some celebrations, not only leading up to that, but in 2021 as we get to that. That will give us the opportunity to more fully celebrate those traditions and legacy. But today I want to focus a little more on recent history because that does serve as the foundation for where we are right now and where we need to go. So let's talk a bit about where did we come from. Our recent history, as you may remember, is characterized by a huge acceleration or increase of revenue from both student tuition. We call that our surge of international graduate students back in the mid-2010s. And also that was coupled with increases in funding from the state of Missouri. But just about as quickly as that occurred, it all unwound. So we had a rapid decline in not only tuition dollars, but state funding around the same time period, which created quite a bit of challenges, as you are aware. And what's common when you see a rapid expansion like this is you have to add services, you have to have staff and funding to meet the demands of our increased population of students. The challenge, of course, is when you have a rapid decline in that and you've built out a resource base with more people and more funding commitments, you have to find a way to take all of that back off the table. If you look at the dates here, this is by fiscal year, so fiscal year 2017, for example, was July 1 of 16 through June 30 of 17. So we're in fiscal year 19 right now, which is July 1 of 18 through June 30th of 2019. As we went from 17 was kind of our shock year where suddenly not as much money was available as we thought, and went into 18, we intentionally built the 18 budget with use of operating reserves, which means savings, right? So the amount of budget we had for 18 we knew was higher than our revenue we expected to come in. And as we got through the 18 fiscal year, it became pretty clear that we weren't going to get any massive increases in state funding, nor would we see a recapture of the tuition dollars that had been coming out from the graduate international students in particular, the unwind of those programs, which left us with a projected deficit coming into this year of about $16.4 million. So we can see from where we had our board-approved budget set in 2017, then into 2018, and then where we fully expected revenue to be for 2019, a very significant change in the amount of expenditures that we were going to be able to have. Now, unfortunately, of course, most of our dollars are committed to personnel. So we did, over the course of the spring and into this fiscal year, eliminate 181 positions. The good news is that only about 85% of those, only about 15% of those had people in them. The other 85% were vacant. So not as bad a news as it could have been with the number of positions eliminated. Now, together this generated about $10 million worth of savings. We also did some reductions in graduate assistant appointments, which saved about $1 million more, operating reductions, and so on. So with your significant work, and let me underline, it was with your hard work, we were able to get to this targeted reduction of $16.4 million, and we actually started this year with a budget that was balanced. Now I have to say, right, that's not a lot of fun. I'm a budget guy, but that's not a lot of fun. So in spite of all of this stuff, we did have a lot of successes last year. Those successes, you know full well. I'll throw out a few. So the LAE team from Criminal Justice, 16 national championships in a row. I don't know if you heard, we won national championship in women's soccer last year. We won national championship in women's basketball. We hit all 6 of our performance metrics from the state that are usually used for performance funding, even though there was no funding for performance. I remember some statistic from Career Services about another year around the 97% mark on placements, job placements within 6 months. Right? We don't have that level of placement rate without the work that you do, right? Our students don't get hired without hard work from Career Services, but if the students aren't well prepared, they're still not going to get hired. So that's your hard work in action. We also had an opportunity to rebuild our Alumni Foundation team. I'm happy to report that we're mostly there. All right, we still have a little bit of work to do with some personnel lines, but we're mostly there on the rebuild of the Alumni Foundation. And that's going to be critical because of some things we'll talk about here in just a bit. As I mentioned earlier, we did have to enact a lot of organizational changes because of the budget reductions. So we'll get that out to you. But right now, instead of speaking about the past, let's talk a bit about where we are. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on where we are right now, because really what's important is where are we going next? What's tomorrow? So as I noted, with your effort, we were able to achieve a balanced budget for this year. Happy to report that the early indications for this year are very positive. My finance side's going to come out just a bit. We projected about $35 million worth of tuition revenue for fall semester. We are 99.15% there. And actually, that's worth celebrating. That's good news because more will come in over the course of the semester. So we fully expect to be at 100% of our forecast for the fall semester. Now, if that doesn't excite you, you didn't live through the last 2 years where those numbers were just a little bit different. I also feel a little bit of confidence, I can't say 100%, but some degree of confidence that the state appropriations that we were allocated will hold up for this year. We always face the risk of withhold or restriction throughout the year, but I feel really good about where we are as a state from tax collections and also how that leads into the support for higher education. So this year is looking good from our budget revenue projected figures. There's always a but, unfortunately. I do want to give you a heads up that our census report will come out in a couple of weeks. And our census report will show a decline in enrollment. All right, we will be down in terms of first-time, full-time freshmen. We will be down in graduate international, which we all expected. We will be down in retention compared to last year. And as much as the revenue projection and our target there is good news in terms of collection, I don't think any of us are happy about where the enrollment is. Enrollment management has embarked on an analysis of why. All right, so what happened coming into this academic year that led to those declines? Now, there are any number of factors that we already know, right? Increased competition, we have declining population in the state of Missouri of high school graduates, we have increased competition from outside of the state, we have a great economy, which, interestingly enough, is bad for enrollments in college, in four-year colleges in particular. But there may be some factors that we have more control over. So enrollment management is going to do a full analysis of where we are so that we can improve where we are going into the fall 2019 recruitment cycle. So I appreciate the work that they've already started on that front. For this academic year, we did embark on a new advising model. I'm not the technology guy, obviously. On a new intrusive student advising and support continuum model. And so this is a slide you would have seen back in the spring. This significant realignment and reorganization of our student advising and many of our support services has a very big goal, 80% retention. All right. Now, I certainly recognize that this impacted many of you who are engaged in this support. And our pledge is certainly to keep supporting the role that you do, because at the end of the day, that 80% goal does nothing but benefit all of us if we can achieve that. And it is a substantial impact on our fiscal standing if we're able to get to that. But let's forget the fiscal stuff for a minute. That's what we need to do for students. Right? Right? So aren't we here to help get them to the finish line? That's our goal, right? Now, it does help us on the fiscal side as well. Continuing the great work that they've been doing for a lot of years, our advisor saw 1,200 students during the first year experience time frame. Thank you guys for that. A lot of hard work. And I will have to confess that was in spite of me giving bad directions to some of the students that I saw around campus. I did tell them to go to the wrong place, so it would have been 1,202. Sorry. And in case you haven't heard the good news, if you're not on Twitter, we were named very recently to the 2018 Money Magazine Best Colleges list, and that's for top value. If you look through the numbers, you can actually look us up, see where we rank. If you compare that to the number of colleges and universities that exist in the United States, that puts us in about the top 15%. So. And we also made the Princeton Review's list of best regional colleges again. It's becoming a common occurrence. There's more good news to come in a couple of weeks, but we're not allowed to say that yet. So keep an eye out on the social media feeds as well as UCM Daily. Many other positives that I could talk about in terms of where we are right now. But as I said, we need to devote some time to where are we going. I suspect every State of the University address could start with, and it doesn't matter the president, time frame we're in, we are at a critical time in higher education. What may appear on your list during this critical time may differ from what's on my list, but here are a few things that I do believe are critical issues that we're facing. We will continue to have downward pressure on revenue, and that's whether it's from the state or from net tuition. There will be upward pressure on expenses. We'll continue to have, or at least we hope it doesn't continue, but we've certainly seen a continued devaluation of the liberal arts education within society. We certainly have much more competition from for-profit, private, and proprietary and public institutions, both in the state and out. And we also have increased scrutiny from government and society, which often questions the value of higher education and our relevance. Now, I have to say, this is in spite of our local legislative delegation. They've been strong proponents for us in the legislature at the state level, so we've gotten great support. But we know that on a national scale, there is that continued question about, are you relevant higher education? Where do you fit? These are not small or easy to solve problems, but they are the realities that we face. The key to this is we can't presume that they're out of our control. Right? We can be in this debate, and we can control some of the narrative, and we can impact some of this outcome. So with that in mind, what I want to discuss today about where we're going, and much of what we actually need to focus on during the current year, will be probably best characterized as nuts and bolts. Right? If you're a believer in strategic plans, we actually have strategic plans, and you believe in the strategic planning process, what I'm going to talk about today may be much more tactical in nature. But I hope it's apparent to you that we can't achieve beyond where we are if we don't have a solid foundation on which to build. Although our aspirations have to be in the clouds, they must be in the clouds, our day-to-day work has to be very concrete. We must have well-defined, well-understood objectives. We have to have measurable goals, and those are goals that we develop together. Through the SRAM process, you may have heard that term before, SRAM, we developed a number of key performance indicators and metrics. If those are really the metrics we think are important for how we operate, then we need to translate those into our day-to-day activities and how that influences the work we do on a day-to-day basis. Here's where hypocrite comes in, right? So although I've just said we want to develop our goals together, let me lay out 6 areas that I think are pretty important for us to think about as we undertake this work. Only 6. First and foremost, sustainable financial and operating structure. Not surprised, probably. that I would bring this up first. In the coming months, we have to finalize the details of our financial allocation model that we started developing under SRAM. We have to analyze and engage in strategies that keep our overhead expenses in check. At the same time, we have to ensure that programs operate effectively and efficiently. Even more so, we have to critically evaluate all of our processes and our operating procedures to streamline our work. A key component of this evaluation is to identify avenues in which automation and artificial intelligence can lighten the workload of our already taxed staff. We've got to get away from routine work that's repetitive, that doesn't really add value to the mission we serve, and focus on those value-added activities. It's important that we take some common sense approaches here, though. We don't add value by creating unnecessary processes. We don't add value by creating redundant processes. But we do add value by supporting our colleagues. We do add value by helping facilitate the work of others and their success. If we're an impediment to success, we're doing the wrong thing. Something else that's critical is that we must have a full understanding of the recent budget cuts that we had. We know that there are critical areas where we're strained. And so I've asked all of my direct reports to start conducting an analysis of the budget cuts we just engaged in and identify where those critical areas are. So we have a full understanding of where our risks are because of lack of funding, what that means from a perspective of success moving forward, and where we can focus on in light of new revenues coming in. I suspect all of you will say, it's my area, right? And so we get that. But we must be able to prioritize refunding of areas as new funding does come through. I can tell you this. Even though we have to solidify our financial and operating structure, the one area we cannot compromise on is academic program quality. Access and affordability are critical to fulfill our institutional mission. We need a new allocation model to help programs be successful, but these can't come at the expense of quality. It's essential that we, UCM, that we are perceived as a destination for quality programs. What makes our programs excellent? If they're not excellent, why not? What are our differentiators? Why would a student come to earn a degree at the University of Central Missouri? Without good or even sufficient answers to these, what's our purpose? So I ask all of you, particularly our faculty and academic leadership, to think about these questions. Right? These are going to be critical for our narratives as we move forward into new ways to recruit students. Something else we have to think carefully about is our institutional culture. Now, institutional culture, that can be tricky, right? Really, who are we? Who do we want to be? Let me put some thoughts out for you. We have a long-standing reputation as a place who cares for students and cares about student success. We also have a reputation as a place where faculty and staff care about each other. We have to continue this legacy. It has to be through an intense focus on not only what our job is, but more importantly, how we fulfill our responsibilities. Our work is much greater than transactional. We should be service-minded towards our students. I want us to be problem solvers. I really don't want your job. all right? I want you to be the problem solver. But let's be clear about this point. That doesn't apply just to students. That extends to each other. Starts with me. University leadership is responsible for facilitating an environment characterized by quality work life. We're also responsible for helping secure the resources to facilitate your success. And I fully intend to be committed to that from my position. But it's only fair that you know, with that sort of commitment and that sort of focus comes high expectations for all of you too. Each person must fulfill these responsibilities at the highest levels and recognize that we're all accountable for fulfilling those responsibilities. And of course, if we're focusing on accountability and looking at how we fulfill those responsibilities, it's critical that we operate in an environment of openness and trust. Again, that starts with me. I've been on a college campus for a long time. Some of you longer, some of you not as long, some of you brand new. Communication on a college campus has always been something of an enigma, realistically, and challenge. To me, the challenges are many. All right? What do you want to hear about? Where do you want to hear about them? What channels do you want us to use? How often do you want to hear about those things? I'm not a communications guy. All of our communications faculty members are attesting to that right now. Right? But I have asked our integrated marketing communications area, our chief communications officer, to consider how we create a form that's on the web that's a what do you want to know about form. It doesn't do me any good to communicate to you if I'm communicating something you don't care about. Right? So we're going to be looking for ways to solicit that from you over the coming weeks because we want to talk to you and have a dialogue about what it is you want us to talk about. It's also essential that we recognize the impact we have on our students and those we serve. We have an unbelievable opportunity to be a positive influence no matter what position we have at UCM. I actually saw that in action today. Apparently somebody had read the script in advance. I saw a student walking down South Street sidewalk on the across from Dockery building on the sidewalk there that's next to the parking lot, sight impaired. And so she was trying to navigate her way to campus. Got close to this, if you're familiar with that side of campus, got close to the steps that go down to an uncontrolled walkway across to our main sidewalk. And one of our custodians was sitting over there on her break and jumped up, walked over, talked to the student, helped her across the street. That's service in action. Now, unfortunately, we often don't know the impact that we've had on others. But believe me, I get to hear a lot of the stories from our alumni. Do know that it exists. And this is the point that was made in a work that became very popular about 20 years ago. Plant a seed, plant a flower, plant a rose. You can plant any one of those. Keep planting to find out which one grows. It's a secret no one knows. Now, if you don't recognize that, that was from the famous poet Hansen in Mbop. And I'm sorry, we just lost all the music faculty and the literature faculty. So even though we may not see the impact, we should never stop planting seeds. A fourth area where we must focus this year is alumni engagement and fundraising. So as I mentioned during the spring, the Alumni Foundation began a significant rebuild of our personnel and our operations. That was led by Dr. Ambrose, so we certainly appreciate his leadership there, facilitated now by Bill Estes. I'm happy to report again that this is mostly complete. Also in the spring, we launched a campaign through the Fund for Student Success, where we're focused on progression for those students that are most challenged financially. It's a great program. If you haven't heard from Jackie yet, she'll be sending you an email. She's already sent me one. So. This campaign is not only designed to help students, but it's also designed to reduce the burden of our institutional aid budget as well. So gifts to this campaign will directly benefit students and the university fiscal standing. And while it's necessary to follow through on this campaign, this is a critical campaign for us, this is only the starting point. Financial contributions will make a difference to this institution. So if we look at our two primary drivers of resources, right now it's tuition and state appropriations. It's critical that we look at external funding as well. So this campaign, again, will just be the springboard for an additional campaign and fundraising activities. So, let me stop for a minute here. We're talking about fundraising. I've asked the Alumni Foundation leadership to work with each of our areas on campus, particularly our academic programs, to identify what your priorities are for fundraising. Now, they've already started that work, right? That didn't start as soon as I said that. That started before August 1st. It's critical that you identify those areas where funding is essential for the quality of your program. We'll have institutional priorities. So the Fund for Student Success is an institutional priority. But we need to know what your priorities are. It's very possible that your priority is also an institutional priority. And what you do in a program or in an area will benefit the entire institution through enhancement of visibility, students, any number of possibilities. So I ask you to think creatively and think big. Right? What do you need? We want to be able to match donor passions with what it is you know will benefit you, your program, and your students. It's also very important that we re-engage our alumni. It's been a long time since we've had an effective alumni engagement program on campus at the institutional level. Many of you have done outreach to alumni in your respective positions. We appreciate that. It's time that we do more strategic alumni engagement. And so I'm very happy to say that that's going to be a priority as we move into this year. You do play a role in that. Right? We need you to help identify opportunities for alumni to engage. They can make a difference, you know that, but they're waiting to be asked. I'm ready to ask them. A fifth area where we must focus this year is enrollment and our portfolio of educational offerings. I mentioned that we will have lower headcount this year. It'll be lower than we've had in quite a few years. In my view, and this is not an ego-driven thing at all, we need to have a larger enrollment if we want to be who we know we can be and to provide the resource base for us to be who that is. However, growth can't come from randomness. We have to be very strategic with our recruiting efforts and our marketing initiatives. The demographic reality is that we face about a 3% decline in the number of high school graduates in the state of Missouri over the next 10 years. So if we think that very large incoming freshman classes will be the way we grow, that's a reality that's probably not going to exist. It's time instead for us to make greater use of market research to identify opportunities where we can best serve. It's time to coalesce our marketing, branding, and recruiting efforts to drive enrollment into our academic programs. And that has to be where growth makes sense and where demand exists. Refined micro-messaging, micro-targeting, utilizing technology and solid analysis will serve to benefit us all. We have to also consider our mix. Right? So when we talk about our portfolio of educational programs, that includes not just what we currently offer, new programs that we haven't identified yet, which we hope to do through market research, delivery modes, locations, graduate, undergraduate. Right? That mix will be critical, and we have to identify targets so that we can be strategic as we approach our recruitment and marketing efforts. Just as an example of the spectrum of possibilities that exist, let's stop for a minute and think about who we are and what we do. Thought I was kidding, right? Wasn't a rhetorical question. So we're an educational institution. Now, traditionally, we package courses, curriculum into credit hours that then we package into degree programs, and that's been our traditional market. But education is more than that. Right? There are plenty of opportunities to provide education in different capacities, whether it's continuing education, whether it's working with corporations, whether it's through certificate programs, through adult education opportunities. There are plenty of opportunities out there. And if you look at the horizon for the state of Missouri, Governor Parson is highly focused on workforce needs and workforce development. In fact, Missouri Department of Higher Education right now is considering the ask back to the state for our increase in funding. They're planning to ask for all of the money we've been cut the last few years. Collectively, that's about $90-something million. They're intending, at this point, to ask for 60% of that to be devoted to Talent for Tomorrow initiatives. That's $54 million. Now, you may agree or disagree about that from a policy perspective. I certainly have my own thoughts about that. But the reality is, if funding in the state of Missouri will track $54 million to higher education for proposals for initiatives under Talent for Tomorrow, which is mostly workforce development types of activities, then we should consider being part of that. And another focus that we need to have this year is our marketing and branding. So you've heard me talk about this already. Right? We need to coalesce our resources. We need to focus on recruitment through our marketing and branding efforts. We have spent considerable resources over the last 7 to 8 years to ensure institutional branding and recognition, and these have resulted in significant name recognition for the University of Central Missouri, both in the state and the region. But now we need to refine the message. We need to look at that market research, better identify what our program potentials are, and use this to serve as our platform for launching a new marketing campaign. So today, we're unveiling to you UCM's new strategic marketing campaign. This campaign, in some sense sadly, will mark the end of Choose Red. I'm sad too. I love Choose Red. And you'll notice that subtly we've been trying to transition some of that to Choose UCM. Right? So we're going to launch into a new message designed to extend through our sesquicentennial, which is coming up in 2021. New message is going to focus on student success, form a platform that we can use when talking about UCM, help us describe the value of higher education, and highlight the great things we're doing here at UCM that differentiate us from our competitors. So our new campaign, there's no drum roll, is Opportunity in Action. So this is rooted in learning to a greater degree. Opportunity in Action is designed to communicate the high academic quality of UCM and to align with our goals of affordability, access, student success, and completion. It's a diverse campaign focusing on telling the story of all the ways we serve as partners in our student success by taking action to ensure they have opportunities and the support they need on an individualized basis. The campaign will extend across all of our efforts in recruitment. It'll extend into alumni engagement and into fundraising as it provides a message that's relatable to our students, faculty, staff, and our alumni. For every member of our campus, this new campaign will present the different opportunities and actions necessary for each person to achieve his or her personal goals. Whether it's being the first to finish college in the family, being able to expand career prospects, and that would be through graduate degrees, certificate programs, or other opportunities, or giving back to UCM to provide new opportunities for our current students. Opportunity in Action is a campaign that delivers a purposeful message to each of our audiences. And I will have to say that guy in the middle I had in class way back when turns out to be a son of somebody on our board, but that was not done intentionally, right? So we do a lot of stuff intentionally, but that wasn't one. So the launch of the new campaign is partnered with a new academic mark, which you saw on the previous slide. And let me recognize part of that mark. So the Opportunity in Action campaign itself will have a finite life. So it's intended to extend through 2021. But the mark is intended to be permanent. So we'll be using this along with our other logos that we've known for a long time, our mule and other logos that you'll see in our style guide. But the mark features the administration building, also points to the year of our founding to reflect that we have a commitment to education for service for almost 150 years at this point. So starting today, you're going to see this mark used on campus. It's available to use on business cards, letterhead, other purposes. September, you'll actually see it roll out to the broader world, so beyond campus. So we're pretty excited about this. There's also a video that tells the story of our connected campus and how we all come together to commit to our students and support their success with a new campaign, Opportunity in Action.
That is such a big question. What does opportunity mean?
Well, opportunity is simply being given a chance.
Here at UCM, we want to give our students that opportunity to discover and to explore.
And also provide the ability for our students to act on those opportunities.
It's a great time to know that there are people who are supporting me, who are helping me get to where I need to go.
So the opportunities that I've had over the last several years at the University of Central Missouri are opportunities that make my lifelong dream of being a professional and of accomplishing the other goals I have a reality.
We're really focusing on a personalized approach, getting to know every single student so that we can align our services
to ensure that each and every one of our students is successful, regardless of their background, regardless of their circumstances.
When students come to UCM, they're looking for the full college experience. Affordability,
tutoring, access to career services,
graduating on time, and opening the world of complete possibility. The bottom line of the university is empowering students to become everything they're capable of becoming and to set them up for success.
and have a greater footprint in this world.
If everyone had access to a quality education, wow, that would be an amazing thing.
If everyone has that same opportunity, lives can be changed.
Everyone could achieve the things that they want to most in life, and there's nothing better than that.
Every student is trying to go somewhere. Every student sees this school as a place to launch.
They're able to open those doors for other students. They're able to provide opportunity for other students, and they're able to do the things that we hopefully have taught them and that we have done for them as well.
And this is the power of opportunity in action.
A lot of thanks to the Integrated Marketing Communications staff for putting that video together. So I have to say, whenever I showed up for my part of the video shoot, I said to Ruth, who was coordinating it, that, well, I'm actually here to do the outtakes and the mess-ups. And so after 30 minutes of shooting, and the 5 seconds they were actually able to use, as I was walking out the door, I did hear Ruth talking to somebody else and saying, well, apparently he wasn't kidding. But for the rest of you, great job. Thank you for being part of that video. So just so you know, when you exit today, we'll have some materials for you that talk about the Opportunity in Action campaign, so feel free to pick those up on the way out, please. Now, I'm confident that there's quite a bit more that I haven't addressed in this limited time that we have. And so I look forward to the opportunities to engage in additional conversation with you. Now, I will very much confess to you that this is not the format that I prefer, right? This is very much the monologue. I very much prefer a dialogue. And so we'll look for those kind of opportunities in the coming weeks as well. But before you go, I would ask you that you indulge with me just a few more moments so that I can tell you a couple of things about me. And I am doing this to let you know what really drives me, so that when you see some of the things that I'm focused on, not just in today's presentation, but as we go through the course of the next 10 or 11 months, it'll give you some indication about, okay, that's what's going on with this guy. So first, let me show this family picture. Now, oh, thank you. All right, so this was taken in December. So it's not what you think, right? Now you're thinking, oh, he's a family guy, and he wants to talk about the importance of family. Yeah, that's all true, but that's not it. So if you look at this picture, so one thing you may notice pretty quickly is this little guy right here. That's Mr. Elam, right? Looking off into space, not at the camera. And if you start paying a little more attention, you realize, oh, Mr. Abbott, he's looking off into space too. And then if you look really closely, this is Miller, who we call Millie or Baby Missy. She's looking in the same direction, right? 5 months old, right? Anybody want to guess where our television is? Anybody want to guess whose job it was to turn the television off? So I show you this to point out, if you've ever had a family picture taken, right, it usually starts with a lot of whining, complaining, crying, and that's the adults. Right? And then you assemble everybody and you have this very small moment of opportunity before somebody really does start crying, right, and having a meltdown, again, the adults. Making sure that sons-in-law on each end aren't wearing ugly clothing, those kind of things. And so my wife has the opportunity to coordinate all this, and she's actually the photographer for this picture. So she puts the camera on a tripod, she puts the timer on it, she runs and sits down on the couch, yells at everybody to look at the camera, flash, right? A lot of effort goes into this. I didn't turn the television off, right? 3.5 second activity. So I point this out to say details matter, right? It wasn't a big detail. It wasn't a hard detail, but it mattered, and I didn't do it. I will tell you, I am obsessed with the details. I am not a micromanager. I told you earlier, I don't want to do your job, right? We hired you to do that job and do it well. Please stay focused on the details, because those do matter. The second thing I'd like to point out, and I don't have a nice family picture for that, is I am an optimistic realist. I fully believe that tomorrow we can be better than today. And tomorrow I'll believe that we can be better than that next day than tomorrow. But I do realize that our ability to accomplish is very often impacted and even impeded by external factors where we have limited control. But instead of using those as our excuse, let's move forward in spite of these challenges. We live in an environment of creativity, which allows us to think. Now, we're on a college campus, right? We live in an environment of creativity. And this will allow us to think of alternative ways to achieve. My challenge to you is to always think about how we can improve. To always look for those alternatives when the external pushes against us. I'm going to refuse to use some cliches such as our best days are in front of us. I will say, however, that those days will be what we make of them. I have tremendous confidence in our Board of Governors and in each of you. I can think of no others for whom I'd want to serve. So let's continue to plant seeds. Let's dream about what's possible, and let's make it happen. Thank you all. I look forward to working with you together this year.